Hi, everybody. It's Craig from Doc Sports, and we're back with another Doc's Daily Show. And it is Friday, the 14th of March. And this is like, the calm before the storm a little bit, even though it's a huge schedule, because the next time we see you, we'll have the brackets, we'll have the odds, we'll have all kinds of information. So make sure, if you haven't done so, hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out. We're putting ourselves out there. I put us a very big goal for Monday, between Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We're going to cover every college basketball game in a video. So not just all the guys here, but all the guys at Doc Sports. So everybody's going to do 3 or 4 games. And, of course, they won't be our best plays, but we're going to give you our opinions on all that. So make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss all that content. Now, if you haven't done so, also make sure you get in on that free $60 account. This is the time of year. I just did a March Madness betting tip video, and I said, the difference is everybody can pick some winners here and there, but it goes a lot more into it. And I'm going to even talk to Robert here when we're talking college hoops today about your money management discipline. There's a lot that goes into not only what we give out, but how we rate the games. So make sure we take all that out of the equation for you. If you just go to docsports.com/free60, get a free $60 account for all new users. Of course, existing users, go to the grid and get in. Boys, let's just real quickly go around the horn. Nick, you start us off. Any big plays today?
Yeah, we got a 6-unit in college basketball later tonight at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. That's part of a 2-pack. The game actually is Oregon. I have Oregon today as well, and that game just started. They're down by 10 at half right now. Got them plus 6.5, so we'll see how that one ends. But the big game is later on tonight, Craig.
All right, and Griffin, what do you have for today? Anything big?
Nothing big today, Craig. I'm kind of sitting here like a clown right now after dropping my 8-unit play of the year last night. I think Brooklyn forgot they had a fourth period to play. Yeah, they scored 14 points in the fourth, which was absolutely atrocious, leading the game the entire matchup. That's why they're just as bad as they are this season. Feel like crap about it, but you know what? We're going to bounce back. Today I did pass on the NBA side of things just because I did not see the card well. College hoop side of things, I'm 8-1 in my last 9 cards. I've got 2 plays on deck today. One's actually going right now. So just dialed in on college basketball today, Craig.
All right, and I feel your pain because I had the Brooklyn Nets against the Washington Wizards, and they scored like 16 in the fourth quarter. So it's like this team has the habit of just playing, 3 quarters of the game. Robert, I know I saw your card today. You got a big card, but I didn't go through it. Do you have top play today?
Hell no. My top play is just a 2-unit play. I'm still smarting from yesterday, kind of like Griffin is. I see we're both wearing black. It's just kind of fitting.
I
had Purdue last night. It's a game that we talked about yesterday. It was a bad play. I'll just say it. Like, it was a bad play. I liked it in the morning. We talked about it. Griffin used it or mentioned it in the thing, but it went against a lot of what we talked about, where we had a team that had played already, playing against a big favorite that hadn't played. But the 2 good things that are going to come out of losing that Purdue game is 2 things I learned moving forward that will help me. Number 1, I will never, ever, 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 ever in my life again have a big play in a postseason tournament on a Matt Painter coach team. That guy is one of the all-time biggest March losers and failures. Okay, so I will never do that again, ever. So that's good news right there. And number 2 is that it just kind of primed me. It just kind of reminded me for next week that the Big Ten, speaking of losers, the Big Ten is always a colossal S show in the NCAA tournament. They are always a massive failure. And that reminded me of that last night because USC, they're in the Big Ten, but this is their first year in the Big Ten. And it just reminded me that when those Big Ten teams get out of conference play in the NCAA tournament and they see other teams from other conference with different types of athletes that play a little bit more open style, that they just completely crumble. So don't be surprised if I'm betting against a lot of Big Ten teams next week. And if I win those bets, I'll have that 7-unit loser to thank for it.
Isn't the Big Ten, it's 20 years now, right, that they haven't won a championship since the
longer than that. I think it was 25. I think 2000, the Mateen Cleaves Michigan State team was the last team that won the championship. 25 years. And routinely they're like, oh, we sent 9 teams to the tournament. And then like 7 of them lose their first game. One of them doesn't make it out of the opening weekend, and then the other one loses in the Sweet 16. Like, they're losers. They're colossal losers in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, Purdue lost as a number 1 seed 2 years ago. They did get to the final game last year, so they did at least regress to the mean or a little bit last year, I guess. But hey, you know what we say in the best thing about betting, you turn the page. No matter if you won or lost yesterday, you have to do it again today and get back to the winners if you win or lost, because you can't. It's just like investing. If you you make 100% on your investment, the next day you lose 150%. It doesn't really matter. So we're back at it today, and let's do a quick run through the NBA today. Big card, but there's some big spreads out there. So let's just Nick, you start us off. What do you like in the NBA? 30 seconds.
Yeah, we got Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. Both of these teams coming off losses here. The Kings lost last night, absolutely blown out by the Warriors. I was actually on the other side as I thought they would play a lot better there. Now playing back-to-back games here. The Kings are on a 3-game losing streak. The Suns are on a 2-game losing streak, but the Suns play a little bit better at home, 18-13, but they are 3-7 in their last 10 games. I believe this Suns team snaps their streak here tonight, lay the 3.5 against the Sacramento Kings that just were awful last night. I don't think they turn it around here in Phoenix tonight, Craig.
I was actually a little shocked. I thought they might get a little more points. I'm guessing this line means that Sabonis is playing tonight. I like that because he's not playing in a back-to-back after they looked so poorly. Now, I guess the Suns have been bad, but it's very deceiving. The Suns are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, but it's like if you've watched some of those games, they've had to have huge comebacks to do that in some of those games. So it's a little like the Suns always worry me because they get down by like 20. Suns should be an in-game play only for like plays because they get down by 20 every game and then they battle back. So make sure if you like in-game plays, that's one team to watch. Griffin, any NBA free play for us?
Yeah, yeah, Craig. So Boston's rolling in Miami to play the Heat. Boston, they're 7-3 in their last 10 games, so they're still playing hot basketball. They're coming off a really tough loss on Wednesday to OKC. They're now trailing Cleveland in the East by 8.5 games with New York and Milwaukee right on their tails. This is a massive motivation factor in my eyes. Boston, they also edge here with strength of schedule after dealing with a very tough Thunder team in their most recent matchup. Miami, they've dropped 5 consecutive games. They're not even 500 basketball at home with a record of 15-16. They're broken right now in my eyes. And until they solidify a win, they're a fade team for me. I'm on the Celtics here tonight, Craig, and I'm laying the 8.5 points.
Yeah, the Celtics really can't be messing around. They're only, I think it's like 5.5 up over the Knicks. And if the Knicks get Brunson back and the Celtics, like you lose Tatum or something, all of a sudden you slide to that 3 seed. Now, I think they still feel like if they're a 1, 2, or 3, it doesn't matter. So they still feel like they can turn the switch, but that's dangerous because, if you got to go 3 series in a row potentially, because the Western Conference is going to have the better record, I believe, over them if they would get to the finals. But, okay, Robert, I know you're the king of college basketball, but do you have a little NBA gem for us?
I used to be good at the NBA. I swear. I used to be good at 9 of 10 winning years. I had 3 straight winning years. This year, not a winning year. No, I don't have a free play. Honestly, I like the 2. If I was to have a free play, the 2 games I looked at were both of the games that they said, and I'm on the exact same side. I like the Suns particularly because, again, if you look at the schedules that these 2 teams have played lately, the Kings have played a bunch of idiots and haven't been particularly impressive. Phoenix are a bunch of idiots, but they've at least been competing against other top tier teams. They've been losing. They're not impressive. They look like a team that just cannot wait for the season to be over. However, it's a small line. They are at home. They are getting the Kings on the back-to-back. And like I said, this is kind of a step down in class from what Phoenix has been going up against on a nightly basis. So that's probably my favorite of the 2, but I like them both. I like Boston to, they're motivated now. They lost. They tasted a little bit of their own blood. I think they're going to take it out on some people for the next couple of weeks.
I like, and just a little side note, I like the if Sabonis goes tonight, I like his player points, rebounds, and assists over. I think they've been holding him out and I think if he plays tonight, he'll have a big game. The Suns play no defense. And he's kind of like their point center, and they play through him, and he'll get tons of rebounds because they throw up a ton of bricks. So I think he'll get us double-digit points. He could go triple-double tonight, maybe if he plays enough minutes. All right, my free play, very simple. Orlando Magic plus 10.5. I know they're in a back-to-back, but remember, it was a blowout. Like the Pelicans didn't get off. I mean, they didn't have to ride the bus. They didn't get out of their cars. Let's just say that. They were in the back most of the game because they had down 20 at half or something. So the Magic got to rest a little bit. I know the last time they were in a back-to-back, they weren't great, but I do like the Magic here. The T-Wolves have been playing very good basketball, but 10.5 points with this Minnesota team that just a week ago, or maybe 10 days ago, we didn't think were very good. And all of a sudden they win a bunch in a row and we think, oh, they're a great team. I still think they're not a great team, at least compared to last year. Give me the Magic plus 10.5. All right, college hoops. Let's go the opposite way. Robert, yesterday, I some great games. I mean, absolutely. Some of the, just the Kentucky game, they were. I was watching the score because I was watching the Warriors game, and I missed that they went behind, and all of a sudden I clicked back, and then I'm watching the game winner. So what a win! We've had several of these in Madness. What do you like as a free play?
Did anybody catch the end of the Xavier game? By the way,
oh God, yeah, you threw the 3 in, banked the 3 in.
I had Xavier plus 2.5 right there. And I was trying to think. Well, here's the thing. They should have won that game. I wanted them to win that game. I really think that that's an NCAA tournament caliber team. I really want them to make the tournament because they are a team I 100% will bet in an underdog role if they are in the field next week. So I really wanted them to win that game. I thought they should have won. They were the better team. But I was trying to think back. I'm like, when was the last time that ever happened to me? Like, I can think of times that it's happened against me where I've lost bets that way. But it's got to be like 8 or 10 years since I've had one of those break my way like that.
Yeah,
like, that
meaningless game, meaningless shot at the buzzer. And,
right.
Did you see? I thought a bad call. They really got a bad call. I thought it was a charge on the inbounds play by Marquette. Xavier wins the game, I think. If that.
Dude, the refereeing was so inconsistent, and that's going to play such a big role next week. Also, if you watched that Big East game and watch some of the SEC games, and if you watch that North Carolina Wake Forest games, the refs were calling nothing. Like that Marquette Xavier game, Marquette was just maiming them on every possession. Nothing. The SEC refs have swallowed their whistles. That's been a case all year. I've heard some commentators talk about that. How are SEC teams going to adjust next week, when the officiating changes? But then if you watch that Purdue USC game, that was awful. Those refs couldn't stop blowing their whistles. I think they called 11 fouls in the first 9 minutes of that game. It was a wreck the whole game. So discrepancies all over the place and bad officiating. Hey, that's part of the package, right? That's part of what we all sign up for when we decide to make our living this way. But my free play, I'm actually going to take North Carolina. I'm going to take the points in that game. Opened at 9, came down to 7. I thought this number should have been around 3. I think this is a perfect example of some of the value you can find during championship week and tournament, the quick turnarounds that maybe the books aren't as sharp on a situation like this. Maybe they're not reacting as quickly as they should be to not only Cooper Flagg being out, but Malik Brown being out. I mean, North Carolina just played Duke last weekend. They had a 7-point lead late in the second half in that game, and that was with Flagg and Brown both playing big minutes. North Carolina has absolutely everything to play for in this game, and it's not like Cooper Flagg got hurt on Saturday, or Duke has had time to adjust and make plans to play without him and get everyone comfortable. This just happened yesterday. They're playing it today. North Carolina needs this one. This is a game I absolutely think North Carolina can win outright. I'll take the points and let's just say I'll be more surprised if Duke wins by double digits and blows them out than I would be if North Carolina won outright. So give me 7.
I like it. I think they win. I really do.
I do too. I really thought that this number would be closer to a bucket, around 2.5, 3. So
don't you think a lot of people don't watch the games and they just look at the final score of what those two head-to-head matchups and you think, oh, they won pretty easily. Like you said, North Carolina gave them everything, and they just went cold. They just went cold for a 4 or 5 minutes straight. And you do that against Duke, win Flags there, dude.
Duke shot 61% on 2-pointers in that game and 44% on 3-pointers in that game. Duke shot out of their mind. They should not have covered that game. Like I said, they were down 7 with 10, 11 minutes left. They end up winning by 13 against a 10.5-point spread. That was a very misleading cover in that game. So I agree. North Carolina's got to leave it all out because win this game, you're in the NCAA tournament. This is their national championship game. I expect you're going to get a max effort from them.
Yeah, they need Davis to have his best game of the year because I will say this: Duke defends for guys that are elite. Usually, you have this much talent, it's hard to get them to defend. We saw Calipari have that trouble when he did. He won the national championship with Anthony Davis. A lot of times, you just can't get the elite athletes to play. They play defense. Cooper Flagg is the best defensive player in the country. He should have won defensive player in the ACC this year. His defensive rating.
What you talking about, Willis?
He is crazy. He can switch on anybody. Like as good as he is on offense, I think in the NBA, like, because you have to be able to switch now in the NBA. Like Cooper Flagg can switch on anybody, and they said it in when he was scrimmaging the national team before they went to the practice for the Olympics, and they were like, "This dude can play both ways." I can't wait to see him in the league. Duke fans that say one more year, you're crazy. You're crazy. Griffin, tell us what you like free hoops play.
Yeah, Craig, I got a sneaky play here. It's BYU versus Houston. Houston's laying 6.5 points, and we have a total sitting at 134.5. BYU coming off a massive win last night in a very high-scoring game against Iowa State, 96-92 final. And we know about Iowa State's defense. They are tough, and they can exhaust the hell out of you. This was a very high-scoring game, and we know BYU, they're back on back-to-back games here. Now they have to deal with Houston, who has one of the best defenses in the nation. Houston's won 11 games in a row, and they're carrying loads of momentum here. I think this is going to be a tight game, but I do expect Houston to break out in the second half due to exhaustion on BYU's behalf. But with that being said, I like a first half line play here. I think BYU is going to come out hot. They already know the environment. They already know what they're getting themselves into. And they're playing a very similar defense than they just played last night. So I think BYU's the play here in the first half, taking the plus 4.5. I don't like laying the points with Houston in a full game just because of it's kind of a large number against two teams that are very, very potent. So I think BYU's the play here first half. I think they're going to come out energetic, come out hot. They just came off a huge win against a very good defense. So I see something similar in this matchup, but I do think they're going to stroke in the first half of this game. So I'm taking the points BYU first half, Craig.
Didn't they earlier this year, Robert? You could probably they lost by like 20, right? It was like at Houston. It was like one of their worst losses of the year. BYU.
Yeah, they got blown out.
30.
So
they lost by like 30.
It was like their worst loss of the year. So this is definitely like, I'm sure they had this game circled, and they have been playing as good as anybody, though. I really thought Iowa State would beat them. Like BYU, they won. What was it? Texas Tech. They won at Texas Tech, right?
They won at Arizona. They won at Texas Tech. They have been better on the road. One thing I will say is that Iowa State did play without Lindsey and without Gilbert. So their two best guards they played without. And the guy like Heisey came off the bench and was just dropping bombs yesterday. So they still I give Iowa State. I think I give Iowa State more credit in that loss than I do BYU in that win, just because they were playing without their two best players, arguably, probably, and they still made it a really good competitive game. But no doubt that that BYU is playing well. I like the first half value on that game. If we're looking for a full game play, I would still lean Houston. Again, I keep going back to it. This team has lost once since November.
Yeah.
Think back to Thanksgiving. That long ago, one team has beaten them in that entire time. They are a juggernaut. It'll be interesting to see if Roberts plays or if they rest him. If he doesn't play, advantage BYU a little bit in the paint. But yeah, should be a great game with two really hot teams.
Well, BYU is only covered, Houston's only covered one of their last five. They're 1-3-1 against the spread. But it's usually because they're having to cover 13
monster numbers. Points. Yeah, it's just like Duke being 22-point favorites yesterday against Georgia Tech. That is insane in a Power 5 conference to see a number that big in a conference tournament. But all they've done is cover spreads, so the books had to do that. Running into the same thing. That's why next week I don't think we'll be able to use Houston. Probably won't be able to use Auburn. What's Auburn going to be favored by? 41 points next week, something ridiculous like that. It's going to be such an absurd number because the books are just don't do it. Please don't play this game. Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting game because even if BYU plays them really tough, BYU has got to have tons of confidence the way they played down the stretch, and they are a tough team to play in the tournament because they can score. They have 2 or 3 guys that can get you 20 on a given night. And their defense has at least been able to stop people down the stretch. Now, they still play some really high-scoring games. Kind of like Kentucky, where they play some really high-scoring games, but it's can you get a stop in the last minute? Because that's really all it comes down to in the tournament. You don't have to be great defensively all the time if you're a great offensive team. So I'm excited to see what BYU does tonight. Nick, college hoops today. I think the Big 12, absolutely great schedule. What do you like today here for college hoops?
Not the Big 12. We're going to go back to a sneaky play in the Big 10, just like yesterday there, Robert, with Northwestern. We got Illinois and Maryland. Maryland's -1.5 here. How about Illinois? They put up 106 points. Yes, it was against Iowa, but Maryland, they come in this game. This is their first game of the tournament here. And everybody that I've talked to, they are high on Maryland, and rightfully so. They're a very good team, and they're going to be a sleeper in the NCAA tournament here. But you need to watch out for this Illinois team. The way they move the ball in transition, 106 points. They're not going to probably end up scoring over 100 points in this game tonight. Maryland's a lot better on that defensive side, but the line here, Maryland -1.5. I think it should be -3, maybe -4 for Maryland in that reasoning. I like this Illinois Fighting Illini team here. Their offense looked absolutely fantastic. They could shoot from the perimeter, and they got big guys in the paint. I think Illinois makes the upset here. I'm taking Illinois over Maryland tonight.
Ooh, I mean, I'm interested to see this game because I just like Illinois because of the health where they had like that 2 weeks where the flu absolutely crushed them. And in that stretch, they played Duke and got manhandled. They couldn't beat anybody during that stretch. So it's like, how do we see them? Because early in the year, they were a great team, right, Robert? Like, especially against the number. I mean, they were beating some good teams. I don't know. Like, I am waiting to see how this game works out. I love this Maryland team. I think they're going to be really tough in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I kind of like the play. It's bold. It really is bold. Maryland, the best player was Derek Queen. He's a freshman, right? He's never been in a situation like this. He's a big-time player. I get it. Like Rodney Rice, their other young starter who's a sophomore. Like, these guys haven't played in games like this. This goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. Illinois was able to knock off the rust, get that first win under their belt. Okay, now they're facing a Maryland team that hasn't played in a month. And going back to what you mentioned, Craig, about when we all kind of sold our Illinois stock, looking at it now, yes, they were dealing with the illness, which is, that's something to be factored in. But still, you lost by 50, on a neutral site to Duke. I don't care how sick you are like that. But in those 3 games that they lost, they played Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Duke. 3 no-joke teams when they were not feeling well. They have not lost since then. Okay, they manhandled Purdue when they played them in the final game. So I feel like you're not an Underwood guy. I kind of like him. He's a tough, hard-nosed kind of guy. I feel like that loss to Duke was exactly what he needed to get a team that had been kind of all over the map. Like, they beat Missouri, but then they get pushed to the limit by Minnesota. I feel like that loss kind of was able to galvanize them, and Underwood's been able to use that as motivation. So I think you're going to get the best version of Illinois in this game. I still think they have too many flaws on their roster to win this tournament, but this sets up really nicely for them to throw a knockout punch to a team that maybe just isn't ready for the environment, for the intensity, just maybe isn't ready to play. And the fact that number is so small, I feel like is kind of an indicator.
This probably should be an overplay. These are 2 teams that can score. Like Maryland, they would like to score in the 80s, and Illinois has shown that they can score in the 80s. So it would probably be a more exciting up and down game, which would be nice because usually think Big Ten, a little more slow down games. Obviously not the Iowa game yesterday, like you said. But I like a little free play action. I'm going back to the well. I lost my best play yesterday with Clemson. I mean, if you would have said Clemson holds a team in the mid-50s, I would say we're going to cover by 10 points. Yeah. But unfortunately, they only scored in the 50s. So they did not play well, and they didn't shoot well. But I think today they're the more experienced team other than Chuck Hepburn obviously has a lot of postseason experience. But this is a Louisville team that's had a great year. I know Pat Kelsey, I played against him. He's the same age as me since I was freaking 3 years old. Dude was a baller. We always were on opposing teams like all the way through the state championship senior year. And this dude is so competitive, but he's willed his team to get to this point. I just think maybe they're a little overvalued. And I think Clemson, because they played poorly yesterday, we get this number a little lower than what it probably should be. I think they're the much better team. And I think Clemson can make – of the ACC teams outside of Duke, I think they're the best team in the ACC just because I think they can beat you with defense or offense. And in the tournament, you sometimes have to be able to, like, hey, we're not shooting well like they did yesterday and find a way to win. I like Clemson here. We're going to find out about Louisville. That's the key in this one. I think you're going to find a lot of information. As Robert says, this is like you're paying it for next week kind of game because you're going to know, is Louisville, can they win on, like a tournament environment?
You almost lost outright last night to Stanford.
Yeah.
I think
11 and a half points.
I think the Stanford team is a little better though than what people think.
They are.
Yeah, I have a vote. I'm a member of the Basketball Writers Association of America, so I get an All-American vote, and I voted for Maxine Reynaud you get 15 guys that you can list for All-American. And Maxine Reynal, that kid for Stanford, like he was one of my 15. Like that guy's awesome. But that game was like almost exactly what we talked about yesterday, right? Like huge underdog Stanford that had already played a game and played really well, facing a team like DePaul almost got Creighton the same way. USC could have beat Purdue. Not only could I have lost, was my 7-unit play not even close to ever covering. Like USC probably should have won that game. So I'm with you, Craig. I actually have a 1-unit rated play on Clemson. I'm going back to them just like I'm going back to Purdue because for the same reason. They're good teams. We've seen them be a very good team for a long stretch. They just didn't have a good game. So will they be able to turn that back around? If they don't, then that's something that we have to consider next week in the NCAA tournament that, hey, maybe these teams peaked in January and maybe they're not the same team. So we'll see if they can look a little sharper tonight. But I'm with you on Clemson. They just didn't look good. Like they looked really, really out of sorts. Like Lotkin did not play well. Chase Hunter kept them in it. They didn't shoot very well from the outside. I'd like to see them give Heidbrigger a few more minutes than they do. Like that guy can stroke it. Transfer from Air Force. He played there with Scheffler a couple of years ago. He's been kind of buried on the bench, but like he's a veteran guy with a great stroke. Like give that guy a little bit more minutes. See if he can get hot. And he's the type of guy that can, not carry you through the game, but if you're getting 12, 13 points off the bench from a guy like that because he's hitting threes, give him a shot.
Well, remember, Clemson beat Duke. Duke's only lost 3 games this year. Kentucky, them, and Auburn, right?
Yeah.
And Auburn. So those are
they beat Auburn.
Well, who was their other loss? I'm trying to think who the other loss was.
Kansas.
Oh yeah, Kansas.
Back when Kansas used to be good. Losers.
back before they I still don't know what's going on with Kansas. But so to me, it's like you have to give a team that can. Their high has been very high this year, and it wasn't like Duke just played terrible that game. They just took it to them. They played great that game. Their high is very high. I think Clemson can make a Sweet 16, Elite 8 run. Obviously, at their seeding level, they're going to need a good matchup. But still, I think they have. At their best, I think they can do it. I think they get that best tonight. I think they can win the ACC tournament because I doubt we see Cooper Flag. So even if they win, or even if North Carolina wins, I think they can beat them. You know what I mean? Like I think Clemson can win the tournament, especially if they get by this past Louisville.
Anybody like anything in the Big East? 2 really good games. That's one of the rare tournaments where the top 4 teams.
UConn looked good yesterday.
We got the four best teams in the. I know Marquette was the fifth seed, but for all intents and purposes, they were the 4th best team in there. So we have St. John's, Marquette, and then Connecticut and Creighton. Your free play on Connecticut came through there yesterday, Griffin, as well. So they ended up winning that by 17. And you guys like anything in that tournament?
What do you feel, Nick, like in that UConn played not great the first half, but man, the last 25 minutes of that game, whoa. It was wake up. And that was a slugfest, too. UConn, I thought, wasn't getting a lot of calls. And they probably should have been up by more. Because they had, 17 paint points, but, 2 free throws. Usually you have that many paint points, you get,
Told you, those Big East refs, man, they were not calling anything yesterday in any of those games. It was
Let's talk about this UConn and Creighton here. UConn's -3.5. Creighton, they had a scare from DePaul yesterday. Everybody knows it. Went into overtime, got the job done. Connecticut, they picked it up the second half. 17 points they won by there against Villanova. These 2 teams played earlier on in the season at Creighton there. Creighton lost by 4 points. The public's going to be all over Creighton -3 here. Don't get caught up in that trap. I'm going with Creighton. Armstrong's got to stay out of foul trouble and the big man. I think they make it competitive here. I don't think UConn is as good as in previous years. I think Creighton gets the upset here. Everybody in the public's going to be on UConn. I love Creighton in this game, Craig.
Robert, how many points should UConn get? Because, they're going to have half the crowd. In that.
I'm in disagreement here. I'm definitely on UConn. UConn has a look to me of a team that could maybe win the Big East tournament and then lose in the first round to some schlub seed, right? Because I'm with you, Nick. I don't like this team because there is such a huge disparity between their highs are so high, their lows are so low. But my thing is, if they can go into Creighton and beat Creighton in their own gym, not an easy place to play, then on a neutral site with a very pro Connecticut crowd, they're going to have a big advantage there. And I just didn't think Creighton looked very good. Connecticut pulled away, misleading final score. But Villanova played great. Like Booga Poplar was going off. They shut down Dixon, but Villanova was still able to find some other guys. So like I thought Connecticut played well. I did not think Creighton played well. They were down 8 with 1:48 left, and DePaul had the ball. Fouled the guy, misses the front end of the 1-on-1, and then they erased an 8-point deficit in the last 1:40 because they didn't miss. Like, it's really just Ashworth and Kalkbrenner for them in these situations. And I like both of them as players, but Connecticut just has more answers. Like, if McNeely's off, they can go here. They can go here. They can go to Carabin. Like, they just have more options in the situation. So, again, I'm kind of hoping that Connecticut wins this game convincingly, maybe knocks off St. John's. That's going to lead to them laying way more points than they should next week in the NCAA tournament, and I would look to play the letdown against them. So I
like Creighton. I think they're going to be good when they get outside the Big East. I think they'll be great in the tournament. McNeely only had 12 yesterday, so it's like UConn. I don't think UConn's going to go very far if they don't get 15, 16 points for him. I think they're at least most potential guy. I mean, he's had some big games, and I think they're going to need more out of him, especially if they're going to beat St. John's. I mean, I'm guessing St. John's going to win the other game, I'm guessing. So before we get out of here, because we're running up against the time, Nick, why don't you give us a free NHL play? Just because I know some people are always on me if I don't give NHL play.
Yeah, we got Utah Hockey Club, Seattle Kraken. Both of these teams coming off wins in their last game. Utah, they just beat the Anaheim Ducks 3-2 on Wednesday, while the Kraken, they just beat Montreal 5-4 in overtime. Utah in their last 10 games, they're 6-2-2, while the Kraken, they're playing 500 hockey here. In their last 10 games, they're 5-5. At home, they are 500, 15-15 here. I absolutely love the Seattle defense. The Seattle defense has been atrocious, I must say. They're 24th here in defense efficiency. I think Utah continues this streak here in Seattle and gets the job done. They play their best hockey here on the road. I would take Utah Hockey Club money line over the Kraken tonight, Craig.
All right, there you have it. There's your free NHL play. Robert, any just on the way out the door here, anything that's going to super surprise us, you think, in one of these big conferences, like a big upset?
No, eyes will definitely be on Auburn today. Do they come to play, and do they just run Ole Miss off the court? They're still, I think the SEC is still the most interesting of the tournaments left, because there's still 4 or 5 different teams.
In Florida.
Keep an eye on the Mountain West too. New Mexico, Boise State today. Boise State looked really good yesterday against San Diego State. They're a team that I think has to win this tournament to maybe punch their ticket. Colorado State looked really good. They're playing against Utah State. That's going to be a battle. Like those are 2 teams, Colorado State and Boise State, that are trying to play their way into the field. They're trying to take the selection committee out of it by just winning this conference tournament. Those are going to be 2 really, really good games. Keep an eye there. And, I said it a couple weeks ago, I still don't think St. John's wins the Big East tournament. I know they looked great yesterday against Butler. They're playing at home. They're all men. I get that, but I'm going to stick with my prediction that I made here on this very show a couple weeks ago. I think that could be a little bit of a surprise to somebody as well. And finally, I'm still sticking with my prediction that I had, that the winner of the UCLA-Wisconsin game knocks off Michigan State tomorrow.
Interesting. There you go. I think the Big Ten is super interesting because I'm not a believer that Michigan State is like that good compared to what their record is this year. So then if you take them out of it, it's like any of those teams can win it that's left. So it's not like there's one that I think maybe that the Illinois game today, the winner there could win it because they kind of play different styles than all the other teams. So it's like a team that, tough matchup, I think, especially for the other side.
Wisconsin lost to Purdue in the finals last year. Wouldn't be surprised if they had a rematch in the finals this year. And I think if they do, Wisconsin will get them.
All right, so there you have it. We got a ton of free plays today. As always, don't forget, we'll be back Monday. And Monday we'll have the brackets. We'll be talking some initial lines and so forth. I'm going to see if we can get Raphael on Monday just to talk a little bit like where the money's coming in, because that's always good information to have once the brackets come out. Like there's some teams that, especially underdogs that just all of a sudden they're a 5-point underdog and they're favored because all this money, a good Cinderella story type thing. So we'll try to secure him for Monday to see kind of where the money's coming in. But either way, we have tons of free plays as always. make sure you go to docsports.com/free60 to get your free $60 account for new customers. Of course, if you're an existing customer, go to the grid, get in, you see who has the best play for the day. And if you just like one of us, you can always go to that sport and get it. It's $30 per day per sport, or $99 per week per sport. So make sure you check it out, and we'll see you again on Monday. Hope all your bets are winning ones. Good luck.